Everyone, welcome to The Index. I'm your host, Alex Kehaya, and today I'm excited to welcome David Sneider, co-founder of Lit Protocol, a decentralized key management network that utilizes threshold cryptography to securely generate and manage cryptographic keys. Before we dive into what all that is, thank you for being here. I'm excited to have you. I want to start off with just kind of really getting a good understanding of who you are and why you're in this space, and kind of just tell us like a little bit of your background, and then sort of help me understand, what gets you out of bed in the morning to come and work on something that just sounds pretty hard.
Well, yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's the right kind of question. So a little bit of my background is I moved out to the Bay Area, co-founded a SaaS business with a couple other guys in 2013. And just being in SF in that era, came across Bitcoin in 2013, attended a couple SF Bitcoin meetups in that era. And I thought it was cool and interesting, but I wasn't feeling like deeply aligned with the Bitcoin ethos, although I intellectually understood it. And then when the Ethereum white paper got published, I consumed that, and just the whole notion of smart contract platforms, and it's so amazing. We have a diverse ecosystem now, just kind of fundamentally aligned with my idea of how we could build a better world through technology. Networks rather than hierarchies would be kind of a simple way to articulate it. And I really like looking at the world through those lenses, and have like an entrepreneurial background. And so just at the time, and so a little bit about the story. In the end of 2017, that SaaS company I was working on was acquired by LinkedIn. And then starting in 2018, I teamed up with my current co-founder, whose name is Chris Casano. He's a crypto OG, started mining in 2011, was the inventor of the first Bitcoin hardware wallet in 2012. And then we spent 3.5 years trying to come up with an impactful idea. We raised money for stuff, shut stuff down, iterated, and launched MVPs of 6-8 different products. And the intent here was to capture network effects, build open source technology. We kind of knew what our ideals were and our design constraints. And then there's a longer backstory to this, but in February of 21, we asked ourselves, well, what if we could use a network of nodes to manage a secret, to manage a key? And where do you store the secret is a deeply fundamental and generational problem in computer science, in the digital infrastructure of our world. And that just seemed like the exact type of problem that we could dedicate our lives to. And so here we are 4 years later. The network is up and running. It's on its way to managing $100 million in assets and starting to become a core primitive for AI agents that do things on behalf of users, all types of things we can get to.
Yeah, it's occurring to me that there's a much broader use case here than I thought when I initially started looking at this. Because when I think of key management, I'm always thinking about wallets, but it's not just wallets.
Right.
This is about secure computation and other things. Can you, just for people who maybe are not, I'm somewhat technical, but I'm not a computer scientist, can you sort of break down for me what it is?
Yeah.
And how it works?
Totally.
And, the problem it solves?
Absolutely. So one way to understand the problem is if you think about authority in digital systems, whether it's a blockchain, Twitter, the New York Stock Exchange, a person is always represented by a secret. The secret can be a private key, it can be a password, it can be the 4-letter PIN on your credit card, an API key. These are all examples of secrets.
But and again, not to be stupid, but when you talk about authority, you mean I have the authorization, the authority to send a transaction or send an email or open my account. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean authority in a very fundamental way. That's absolutely right. And so, that is the great unifier around technological systems. They all use the same method for managing this type of fundamental authority, which is the secret. And so we know what secret management looks like before Lit. We see it in the example of exchanges with Coinbase and Binance. Like fundamentally, the product that they are providing as custodial exchanges is they are managing user secrets. We know what this looks like in the self-custody context with Phantom, MetaMask, and Ledger, where the user has a secret on their behalf. And the kind of crazy and fun and interesting thing to think about with secrets is that it's a bit like gold. It's a bearer instrument. Even though it's some digital information, the party that holds it has the authority over it. So when you kind of look at the world through secret management or secret lenses, things become really, really clear. You say, okay, but who actually has the authority? How is this secret controlled? Which is to say, how is this identity controlled, or how is this authority controlled on any given digital system, including blockchains, which is like for sure the primary focus here. So yeah, I mean, I think it is bigger than blockchains. I think it's blockchain and crypto right now, but there are much better structures that are possible in society. Like the fully realized version of Lit protocol, something that I would love to see is, the 50 states of the United States managing a threshold secret across them, such that a distributed key can be maintained for all citizens. Right? That's like kind of a far out idea, but the technological components are there to make such a future happen.
What would that key be used for, though? Like connect that idea to like something everybody can understand in their daily lives. Like, like in that case, like I think that's a really interesting. It's a really interesting example of like a broad adoption thing. So, what do you have in mind that like if we have a maintained key that is for citizens, it's maintained. Mm-hmm. My understanding of what you just said is there's 50 states, 50 nodes. They're maintaining the keys. They're securing keys. The secrets of all these citizens on that server. It's a Lit protocol. It's a network running Lit protocol. So what is the thing that citizens do with the key that's managed by the states?
Yeah. So I mean, in that example, we already can see what's happening in California with the digital ID. But in the context of California and the digital driver's license, the phone becomes the bearer instrument of the digital driver's license. So it's literally like the exact same problem statement in crypto because of this bearer nature of the secrets. Where in a decentralized context, like another way to think about Lit is like a decentralized programmable account. You could connect multiple phones to it. You could connect email and phone to it. It's all totally programmable. It's an interesting thing to consider. What is the root of authentication and authority? Is it a secret, or it is a secret that you can connect other authentication and authority to? And so in the context of what we built at Lit, it's the latter, which like enables a bunch of really sophisticated use cases around private data and chain abstraction and agents. But to kind of put a point on it, it's just a better experience for people at the end of the day, when they don't have to worry about like, oh shit, did I leave that seed phrase in my drawer when I went on vacation and somebody came over? Or, oh no, I've lost my phone and now I'm essentially like have to go to a homeless shelter and get a pay phone to get my life back, when we're talking about the secret as a bearer instrument or a bearer object.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So I lose my phone. How do I get my ID back?
Yeah, it would depend on the authentication methods that you've hooked up, right? Like you're familiar with multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication. So it's just that same method.
Is it MPC? I mean, is this MPC technology?
That's correct. Yeah,
okay,
so
cool.
The saying threshold cryptography is shorthand for multi-party computation threshold secret sharing.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah, I do agree that is important. I don't know if have you seen Fuse Wallet that came from the Squads team yet?
I'm in touch with the Squads team. I haven't played around with Fuse too much.
They just launched it. It's not that old, nice. But I'm super bullish on it. And they use MPC, on the back end for the account creation, and it is just. Like your technology is one option for anybody like Fuse, like the Squads team or any developers out there that want to add this functionality to an application. Right. They can now allow people to sign in, and I'm making air quotes if you're listening. They allow you to sign in and create what is essentially a wallet address, a key, It's just this has like broader applications than just sending and receiving money. And you basically can sign up with your email, and then they allow you to create a couple other ways of recovering it. Like you always need like in multi-party computational wallets, you need like there's usually like 3 different ways to store the parts of the key, the secret. And I don't know if it changes if that's different for you guys or how yours works, or if it can be as many as you want it to be. Like it could be 3, it could be 100. But it just makes it easier to recover it, which is what we were just talking about, without having to write down 24 words and then come up with some kind of crazy security protocol for yourself. I mean, and this is the thing, like once you've been in this space long enough, you start getting really paranoid about how you secure your private keys, your seed phrases and stuff. And that's not really normal. That's not normal. And I think it's interesting because we're getting closer. Like Fuse is a good example of a great user experience that is very closer to like you should check it out because it's so close to a real. I mean, it's almost better than my bank, honestly. And you can use a debit card with it. Like you can self-custody USDC on Solana in that wallet and just use a debit card like normal. Mm-hmm. You can receive USD. It's got an ACH number and it auto converts to USDC. Like it's so simple. But for me, I'm like a crypto nerd. I'm like, it's beautiful. It's so easy, for people who aren't in crypto already that might onboard to that, it's just like, oh yeah, this is how things work, but they don't realize like the fact that self-custody, like how important that is, what a big deal that is. And so it sounds like Lit is a protocol that enables people to build things like that, but also more than that. So talk to me about AI agents and like how this relates to that. Why does an agent need a secret key and secure it on Lit protocol?
Totally. I guess just one more note on Fuse and what, this whole notion of MPC wallets. Most cases, and I'm not sure what the case is for Fuse, and you were talking about the number of shares, like the 3. It turns out it's a lot easier to do 2 of some number shares where you need 2 of the total parts in order to generate the key. What's a lot more difficult is to do it in a network context, T of N. And so there is a little bit of a security difference between doing 2 of N, where 2 parties can collude and steal the secret, versus the networked context to that. But maybe we save diving into that first.
Right. Well, with Fuse, so just like, I know that's kind of complicated. We're getting into the weeds here, but like it is interesting, right? Like, so with Fuse, I have like email and my hardware wallet, which I really like because nobody can hack my hardware wallet.
Yeah. And the brilliance of Fuse.
But that's also pretty heavy-handed. Like, not many people are going to do that, right? Like, so.
The brilliance of Fuse, too, is also merging the MPC with a smart account. So my assumption is that the hardware wallet has the authority to sign for the smart account, and then the MPC, the 2 of N MPC key, is another signer on the same smart account. And so they, quite cleverly, and we've seen a number of teams implement this with Lit, combining smart contract account powers with MPC powers is like, and that ends up being just the nature of defense and risk mitigation in cybersecurity. Like the classic metaphor that people use is defense in depth, where you take different sets of privacy enhancing methods and technologies and you stack them in such a way that the total is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
In the case of Lit, it's combining this T of N threshold MPC with secure hardware. But then that key can also then be a signer on a smart account, and it's all interoperable and can keep compounding.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, AI agents. Well, tell me about this.
Yeah. Seems like we're at the dawning of a new type of internet.
They're coming.
They are coming. And
the swarm. I keep imagining like the Matrix with like the robots, coming out, like chasing us. That's what AI agents are.
I think that
the tentacle
the
arms.
Scariest possible view. I'll take the other side and I'll give you the most wholesome view, and then we can maybe meet somewhere in the middle.
Bluey,
at least to me.
Bluey, the TV show Bluey. Have you seen that?
What's the deal there?
I have kids. You just look it up. It's a Disney show.
Yeah.
It's the most wholesome show ever.
It's an interesting design question, which is like, what is the most beautiful and human-centered and human-oriented way that this new technological construct can arise. And to me, it's pretty much like LLMs doing things on behalf of people. So right now we're in this like phase one where the LLMs deliver information to people like ChatGPT, but we're entering kind of phase two where the agents are doing things on behalf of people, which gets back to the authority and the secret. And so, you're probably putting the pieces together there. But to me, where it gets really interesting is how do you make that agent that is doing things on behalf of somebody as tamper resistant as possible? And there's many components to get into there, right? Like you can't ask DeepSeek about Tiananmen Square. So the LLM is part of it. You need to be mindful of where your keys are managed. Not getting rugged is part of it. So it's not necessarily a one-shot answer with one piece of technology, but I think that's kind of the end game, right? Which is automations that do things on behalf of people where there's nobody who can rug either financially or psychologically in the mix when we're putting just so much trust into these systems that are working on our behalf, and we're starting to see that. And so the role of lit is really quite simple in that, which is where do you store the agent's authority? Where do you store the secret key? You either have it on your computer or in your on your phone, which means that the agent cannot operate with you out of the loop. You have to be there to push a button, or you are delegating the authority to some central party and being like, hey, good luck, have fun. Here's my bare object, my fundamental secret. Please don't ruin my life. And then lit presents a third way, which is managing the secret in the distributed context and then storing rules and policies and tools, essentially abilities on chain that secret can operate on. So the take that we have with the lit agent wallet is there's essentially two parties. There's the agent owner, who's like a user as an individual or a DAO, and then there's a delegatee that has some scoped authority, and that's like the LLM in the agent example.
To tell the story. The
guys know them well. I think I'm talking to Stefan next week.
Okay, cool, cool. Okay, yeah, cool. I was just going to say, because this is like, they definitely have some stuff coming that like your agent, like this is very complementary technology for what they're doing, and it's like, I literally just had a friend text me this morning, hey, I'm going to launch this agent. Should I launch it on Solana? And I was like, yes. I was like, definitely you should launch this thing on Solana because that's where all the liquidity is, all the attention. And they basically like at least in the near term, like won the attention game for all things meme coins and all things AI agents, and yeah, so where are you in this process? Like, have you guys shipped any agents and like, what are they doing?
Yeah, so we've shipped the agent wallet. There's a number of teams integrating it. One of the takes that we've had with this agent wallet is that it's ecosystem agnostic because the secret is not bound. We're looking at this through a key management lens. And so one of the hypotheses that we have with the agent wallet is that certainly we have crypto devs building agents largely on Solana today, but the emerging wave of like Web 2 AI developers and builders, entrepreneurs and product people, to them, the sophisticated differences of doing an EVM to EVM swap, a Solana to Solana swap, Bitcoin to Solana, Solana to move, and the different subtleties between the smart contract languages and formats amongst all of those systems. Like our view is that if we really want to go to the next level of adoption, which is bringing in the Web 2 agent developers, that needs to be abstracted away.
100% agree.
And so I think the agents will tend towards going to where the liquidity and attention and action is, but the types of agents that we're seeing implement lit are multi-chain by default because they're starting with the key rather than the chain, if that makes sense. Walk me through that works, because even though you might have like an EVM chain, all right, developer creates an agent on top of lit, and I want that agent to be able to trade ETH and SOL on my behalf with these certain rules, like spending if the ETH to SOL ratio hits this, do that, right? Like something simple. So I still need to make sure that it has to have an ETH wallet, and it has to have a Solana wallet, and it has to have some SOL and some ETH in that wallet to interact with the things. So there's still, how are you managing that abstraction? Like does your protocol have to manually add support for transacting across all these chains? Or how does that work? How are you creating that abstraction? Or is it through other like certain products that you're composing with? Yeah, so the for that given agent, the lit network is managing both of those key pairs, but those are just like EOA key pairs.
What's EOA mean?
Externally owned account, as opposed to a smart account. Like from the perspective of Solana, a signature that is generated from the agent wallet is the exact same as a signature that I generate from my Phantom wallet on my phone. So there's no like extra special stuff. Certainly, like gas abstraction is an emerging field, and that makes it easier for users. Like it's still a blockchain; you still have to fund the wallet in some way. Gas is still a requirement to write the state to the chain. But beyond that, there's it's just calling the smart contract function. There's no like extra special tooling because it's the same type of key that's in Phantom, basically.
Yeah, I'm just talking like logistically as an engineer, like, am I just giving, like, do I just give the agent my seed phrases and then it can transact on both networks and it just knows where to go? Or like, do I have to do some programming to wire it up with some APIs or something? And I got to know which protocols I'm using on both chains, or like, how does that work? Or there's also projects like Mantis. Mantis is a sponsor of the show. They're like an intense network. And so you could build this agent on top of Mantis. And they actually are doing this. Like they're building, they work on Sol and ETH right now. And they've got, you know what an intense network is. So I don't have to like explain that. But I'm just curious like where this works.
Yeah. So basically the flow is, let's say the order comes in that says buy 1 Sol. How that order was determined is essentially the responsibility of the LLM and the context that was set up ahead of time, right? Like in the example that you gave, when the ETH to Sol ratio reaches X, make this purchase. Instead of that LLM having access to the key material is in this distributed network that we've been talking about, Lit, which is also a computing network. Ahead of processing the transaction, there's basically just like one step, which is check against the on-chain policies. So read the Solana blockchain and say, is this agent allowed, because the key material is being managed by the same network that is enforcing the policies. And so the policy enforcement network Lit says, is this agent allowed to buy 1 Sol right now? If yes, it crafts the transaction and broadcasts it to chain from that key pair. And so what the LLM gets is it knows its constraints. It knows what it's allowed to send based on on-chain data.
Interesting. But you guys have already done this work. Like, so a developer doesn't have to like wire those things up together. They can just come in and work on their LLM, right? And then they connect it to Lit protocol and for their key management solution, which then, and they still have to fund it, right? They need to fund the accounts. But it allows them to connect that stuff kind of easily. I don't have to look at the documentation really to like get a deeper understanding, but just like at a high level, that's kind of my understanding. Am I correct?
You're correct. The other thing to like, we've got a number of like the basic DeFi contracts in as tools on EVM chains and Solana chains and things like allow lists, block lists, things like that. If somebody wanted to create a more granularly spec'd policy, they could write their own tool in JavaScript or in Python to do so. So there is like, it's all open source software. So
cool.
Yeah, if you wanted to say like, make the 1 Sol transaction, but only on Tuesdays and only if the weather in New York is lower than 40 degrees and only if so-and-so is following me on Twitter, right? Like you could continue to engineer sophisticated capability in that context.
Well, like just to zoom back, like take a step back here. I'm just like blown away at where we are. Like you were just talking about when we started this conversation about AI, right? It's like this, like 5 years ago, this seemed like the future, something like 20 years from now. And it's not. It's like today. And I have a sub-segment of this show called Everything Bagel. It's with the founder, Bidon Roy, the founder of Bagel Network. Oh, nice. And it's about like cutting edge AI research and open source. That's what we talk about. And we had the founder of Allura on, I don't know if you know Allura, and we were just talking about like his product is like shared knowledge from inference, right? So all these AIs, all these LLMs are like coming up with, like you ask it a question or you give it a prompt or you create some agent with it, right? And then all these LLMs are actually working together to get the best answer, the best inferred correct answer. And what this leads to eventually is like shared AI across multiple LLMs, which is kind of nuts. Like it's something I hadn't even thought of. And I guess one thing I'm really curious to hear what your perspective is. I have come to believe after these conversations I've had with BitOn lately and a few other people on the show that AGI, artificial general intelligence, and artificial superintelligence, they're definitely right around the corner from companies like OpenAI. I mean, we may be like months away from some of this stuff. Can we use technologies like Lit, like Bagel, like Allura to get there faster for like a people-powered, open source, people-owned, community-owned AGI? Like, can we make it happen? Yeah. Like, what actually needs to happen? Like, do we need more? Like, is there enough compute, decentralized compute, for example? Like, are the components in this composable stack of technology to enable that to happen out there? Because I'm starting to feel like that should be our North Star, right? Like for for Web3, for crypto, with as far as AI goes.
I tend to agree. Like we're less involved on the training side and the creation of new foundational models. But I can tell you the story from my personal perspective, which is like, we've been working on this for 4 years now, and private data and user-owned data has been a story in Web3. And then I kind of had like a visceral reaction when ChatGPT 3 came out, and it started to indicate like, oh, we are really heading in a certain kind of direction here. And things that, have continued to only get kind of crazier and more intelligent since then. And it caused this shift in me, which was like, prior to ChatGPT 3, user-owned data was like a nice thing to do. It gave people power back from marketers and advertisers. Now I think it's like an existential threat, because if we 100%. Don't put this on crypto rails, what's the alternative? It's like what people have accused Facebook of doing with the elections on steroids, right? Like the last thing I want is for people in my family to have, as they're growing up and talking to these worldviews, when they're kids and stuff, to have their worldview altered. Like a really scary scenario is, let's say we all use OpenAI, they control the fundamental model. And this isn't to say anything about like the people who are working there today, maybe they're really wholesome, but let's say in the future, somebody else who's not, like a malicious actor there goes, what would be really great if everybody was 13% more consumerist, and we just like try to embed that into the culture. And so there's like these really kind of scary macro things that are possible if we, in my view, if we don't have open models and open methods for both building and executing those models, where an individual gets to decide, here's the way that I want to see the world. I don't want to let a corporation decide the perspective of my closest companion and my closest agent. I think it's one, definitely the open source foundational models. There's obviously this interesting one from China that just came out that leapfrogs things ahead on the open source model side. But then there's what is the underlying framework? And the way that I see our work and many of our peers who are working on this notion of crypto AI frameworks is like, we have to get this stuff in place and running and happy ahead of the intelligence reaching that AGI level. And so maybe we have months, maybe we have a year or two, but like it's not a game basically.
No, it's serious. It's like an arms race. And I just want to point out though, like you kind of like downplayed a little bit what your role is in it by saying that you're not like an LLM, right? You're not building LLMs or working on that stuff. And that stuff is important. Yeah. But one thing I'm starting to visualize is so just like, again, zooming up high level, like why is crypto important and what has it enabled? And especially with something like Solana today, this thing that you're seeing on Twitter is internet capital markets, right? So capital markets can form around a idea or just a brand, a meme coin, right? Mm-hmm. In minutes. Okay, we just saw this with Trump. Literally in less than 24 hours, it hit $70 billion in market caps. In literally minutes, it was multiple billions of dollars in market cap and volume, right? Like going through the network. So why is that important? Well, capital markets, like the reason things accelerate so fast in crypto is because capital markets can move at the speed of light. Mm-hmm. And those the ability to just create a market and flow capital through a system at the speed of light instantaneously, that to me is what is going to enable AGI or ASI to get funded and to attract all the attention and developers that it needs. But you can't just have that. You have to have a stack of technology that enables developers to actually build those things and then take advantage of the demand they can generate because of internet capital market formation, because of that capability. So that's why I think LIT is important, because if you're making it easy for Web 2 developers to just build things and abstracting away the blockchain stuff, and then they're getting access to internet capital markets, because the tools already exist, obviously, to form those markets. We're seeing it happen. That has extreme product market fit, with applications on Solana generating tens of millions in revenue every day, right? And I think that what I think hasn't quite got, or what's about to get there, is these other tools that allow these things to meet in the middle, right? With like AI development. And again, I'm starting to think that the North Star for where that meets, it needs to be decentralized, open source, people powered AGI and ASI, artificial superintelligence.
I'm so aligned with that goal. I've got a related take to internet capital markets that I'd be curious about your perspective on. Like, when I thought a little bit about, like, what is the intersection of the Trump coin and every past and future meme coin with DeFi AI and these agents? And like, I think it's still too early for this, but one thing that would be really cool to see, and I personally think that it has potential of being possible, is that the holders of the Trump meme coin, rather than just kind of like being in the trenches and riding the waves, because it's like a pure meme, it's a gift, it's a collectible. One of the cool things about blockchains is you can append features and services to that with nobody's permission. And so maybe we'll see a world where the holders of the Trump coin turn into members of a DAO for a gigantic hedge fund, where the hedge fund members are Trump coin, meme coin holders. Because that's what a tool like LIT can deliver. You could say, cool, here's a bunch of keys. These keys are connected to an LLM, and the parties that can decide what that LLM can sign, what transactions it can make, are decided by the holders of Trump coin. And so we can, like, that's one of the things that I'm excited about, is what is the next evolution of meme coins? Maybe they'll stay where they're at today, but all of the material is in place to say, here is a set of people that represent an idea, and rather than it just being a capital market, it also starts to look like a hedge fund in addition to a capital market. And people go, well, cool, I'm going to get some returns for this, but I also believe in this idea and I want to be part of this. So they buy the meme coin, and then they're a member of that hedge fund. Anyway, curious about your feedback on that idea. This is something I've been musing on.
I mean, I think that one thing is, I think that we're, like I said before, we're very close now to having the right stack of technology to actually make what you're talking about possible. Because the keys is just one part of it. You also, so one big piece that was missing that Bagel Network has built is monetizable open source AI. So a way to attribute contributions to LLMs and tie that to revenue, right? So let's say you build an AI agent that runs off of a couple different LLMs, right? Okay. And you can now take Allura and Bagel and combine those things. You've got Allura, which is allowing the multiple LLMs to build the consensus on like the price, agreeing what the future price of something might be. And that's what the hedge fund does, right? It makes trades based on what it thinks the future price is. So that network does that. Yep. Bagel, what it does is they use cryptography, zero knowledge proofs, to attribute what developers contributed to an LLM to make it better, because they're having to train it, right? And for people who don't know this, like when you have an LLM, you create parameters, right? And those parameters, you funnel data through it, and the parameters define like how that LLM kind of learns and gets better. Yep. And what Bagel has done is enable but you could make a bunch of different parameters for an LLM. I can take your now completed and trained version, add my params to it, and append the functionality of it, right? And it knows how to calibrate, the protocol knows how to calibrate how much revenue I should get from people consuming it, right? So now with these two stacks of technology, you can have a network of LLMs that are making money from doing the hedge fund operations, getting paid, right? And then the engineers who were actually trained it are getting compensated for it too. And I think that's where you combine like, okay, these use cases that are generating revenue with getting money back to the contributors. And that's how it becomes now a full stack of open source technology that is probably powered by token economics. The crazy thing, the crazy future, which I just am still having trouble believing is actually can happen, is where these things are really autonomous. When you get like artificial super intelligence and they're actually earning money, right? Like, you know, the AIs are like earning money and getting paid. And like, again, This is one of those things. It's like what we thought a few years ago. We're like, yeah, you know, AI is not that useful yet, you know, or it's only useful to like big companies with huge amounts of budget, you know, and then, but it's actually going to be here maybe pretty soon. You know?
Yeah, I love this. And I could bring in one more stakeholder group in the hedge fund example, which is is the individual person who's just wandering around throughout their day. You may be familiar with the term data exhaust. It's a term from the ad tech world. It refers to like all of the metadata that an individual produces, their location from the apps, their cookies on their website, et cetera. Like you want to build the ultimate fund and the ultimate investment machine, let every single individual opt in to contributing their own personal data in the training of the models, in the inference, such that that model has the best data, which is the required input in order to make the best bets. And then all of the parties are fairly compensated for their contribution. The engineers, the model creators, and then the individual data contributors. And we start to get to something that looks like collective intelligence, where there are these like, and the hope here is that, like, with some of, you know, it's very easy to go down the list of what are all the problems in society, but that some kind of emergent collective intelligence that is comprised of all of the people who are all here on the planet, like, maybe helps us make some steps in the right direction. So yeah, I'm really optimistic about this AI future, and for me, definitely perceive the biggest threat as like nation state and corporate tampering, opposed to some Terminator scenario, right? Like if we're talking about what are the actual threats in the near term, the Terminator scenario, at least to me, seems much more far-fetched. What seems like quite plausible and why the alarm bells are ringing to build this stuff out is authoritarian leadership having control of this, corporate, like unchecked corporate control having leadership over this. And it's not like regulations are going to prevent that. The only possible way to create any kind
100%.
of enclave or defense for people is through verifiable cryptographic methods.
Yeah, and this has been a constant theme on this for me on this show, has been that thread, which is, you know, state actors. This is essentially nuclear arms race, you know, and if it's not open source and not running on open networks that everybody can access, we're gonna have a really serious problem. There's gonna be no way to fight back. You know, it's gonna be really hard, and you might not even know what's happening, which is also kind of crazy.
Yeah,
right?
It's like the next 18 months basically are.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Kind of terrifying. Well, on that note, I would like to ask you, you know, is there anything that I haven't asked that I should have?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can also, I guess we've talked about some like society scale things of what this could look like in 5 years. Maybe we should talk a little bit about like what this could look like for an individual in 3 to 5 years. And so for me, like where it kind of goes there is right now, you know, from the perspective of secret management, the two biggest secret management providers, and in many ways, like if this is going to end up kind of corporate controlled, will be through Apple and Google. Most of us have our passwords and credit card numbers on there. They are managing billions upon billions of secrets that are the most sensitive information for individuals. And so that's kind of the other motivating factor here is, what does it look like for somebody to be able to not have to have their root of trust as an individual in a corporate entity? And in something that is verifiable and cryptographic as well, where what their day-to-day looks like is a lot like the movie Her. They're just talking or typing to an agent. They say, oh, you know, hey, I just saw this thing in the news, rebalance my portfolio accordingly and maintain a ratio of 40% TradFi to 60% crypto. Or are there any birthdays coming up? Oh, yeah, it's your neighbor's birthday. Oh, send them a box of donuts and some flowers or whatever. And so we just, like, things potentially apps kind of disappear, things collapse into one super app, an agentic app, and less on like the society scale, how do we not get co-opted as a society, but more around like, how does each individual not get co-opted? And these things are of course related. There is definitely a question, and for me, when I think about like how, the competition and substitutes and lit protocol, like when I zoom out, it's basically like our work and our peers, some of which who were like co-op. There's a portmanteau of competitor and cooperator that I can't recall right now. Like in many ways, it's kind of us against the established incumbents, and so I like to continue to think about that view and just how the only opportunity for us to kind of like move the world to tamper-proof verifiable systems is also by building a 10x better experience for people. Right? This is like Web 2 social, crypto exchanges. The centralized parties are dominant, right? Like CEXs do 85% of the swaps, where DEXs do 15%. Social media.
I will say that, and I totally agree with everything you just said. I will say there has been a sea change in the last couple of weeks. Literally since I think Trump coin is like the biggest thing, and that probably woke people up to this, but that was done on a DEX.
Yeah.
Meteora on Solana, and you don't need to list on a centralized exchange anymore. Yep. You don't.
Things are changing.
You still need to get to build your distribution, but you don't need permission at all. And that was the big, like historically, the centralized exchanges have been the gatekeepers to all the liquidity and all the users. And that's changing pretty quickly. I think Phantom like probably onboarded millions of users, just during the Trump thing. Just people for the first time downloading Moonshot, right? That was the other app. And so, yeah, this is the first time I'm seeing something like this in the space, where there's real retail, like mass adoption potential for on-chain, and that's promising. And again, that these like combination of things that we've talked about on this episode are why I'm asking the question, like, is it possible to get ASI or AGI from this community, in 12 months? Can we get like a North Star? And like you talk about co-opetiers or whatever the heck that word is, where like we have competitors, but really open source software is the purest form of innovation, and everybody's just trying to build the same thing, right? And so we're building these composable open source stack, and I think that we can all work together to get to something that impactful.
Here.
So with that note, I think we got to wrap. We're at the top of the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
What a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
More head.
Awesome.